My name is Jill Coyle, and from years of experience as a divorce attorney, I know for a fact that no one dies from divorce. The experts and I are here to show you how to not only survive, but thrive during the most difficult times. Welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. I've got my partner in crime, Kara North, with me today. Hey, Kara, I'm so happy to do a podcast with you finally.
Hey, Jill. Yeah, this is really fun. Obviously, we're friends, so we hang out and chat all the time, but I've never been on your podcast, so I'm kind of excited.
Yes, and we are talking about Utah drama today because Kara and I, you all know, we live in Utah, and Utah just seems to be that state. You wouldn't think there would be a lot of drama, but there is a lot of drama.
More than we can handle.
Yes. And so we thought it would be fun to do a podcast and kind of talk a little bit about it. So let me introduce Kara because some of you probably don't know who she is. I have started a female-founded personal injury firm called Moxie Law Group, and I'm super excited about this because personal injury is something that you just do not see a lot of female attorneys in. They're not highlighted on the billboards, on the commercials. You see people all over the country. You just don't see very many women, especially in Utah. And so I came up with this idea of wanting to be able to do a personal injury firm that fronted women attorneys that are so good in this space and give them a space to just like basically rock it. And our goal is to blow Moxie Law Group up so you get to see more personal injury women on billboards, commercials, and the like every other personal injury firm. So that's to my bestie, Kara North, who, small world, me and Kara actually have kind of known each other, but not really, through our husbands who knew each other, like 13 years
12
ago?
years. Yeah.
They worked together. This was before my husband, Ryan, went to medical school, and they were working together, I think, on a psych ward. Mm-hmm. And so they have just kind of known each other. And then when I came back to Utah, me and Kara knew kind of who each other were, but we never connected. And I started Moxie Law Group, and I started a women's PI lunch. And Kara was like, I'm going to go because I've been wanting to meet Jill Coyle and we've been wanting to connect. And it was instant, like, oh my gosh, we were supposed to be best friends like forever ago.
We're like the same person, but you're cooler, but we have so much in common. It's crazy.
No, we are not, in the fact that we are both very ambitious, and Kara is like, anyway, so she was doing her thing in personal injury law and has been like a prominent female in the space for, the last 12, 13 years in Utah. Yeah. And we just became friends. And I was like, this company, this theme needs you. You are the epitome of what Moxie is: tenacious spirit and zealously advocating for people in the worst of their, worst of times. And it worked. And in just a couple months ago, me and Kara joined forces in partnership. And Kara is now going to help me lead this company to be what I know it can be. And so with that, I'll just say Kara's married. She's got a son, but she is super active in the community. She does a lot of things like me, but not, I would say you serve way more in the community than, what I can do right now. But she is the Utah Valley University Alumni Board President. So she's doing like tons of stuff with that. She's the Utah Association of Justice Women's Caucus Chair. Do you sit on the Utah Association of Justice Jury Selection Development Committee?
Yeah. Yep.
She runs this is crazy. You run the Women Lawyers of Utah 4th District Chair. Yeah. She's a Utah Bar Exam grader. And then she's been the Central Utah Bar Associate President last year. So she's also, Coil Law is, and my companies are big in the Salt Lake Chamber. And Kara is being a presence and helping with that. And then she is like me in the fact that we know all the same people and like all these women that want to support us in what we're doing. And it's crazy how many mutual friends we have. And it's just been amazing to become what we should have been 10 years ago, but just now I consider her like one of my closest friends. So
Agreed. Yeah. I think I blame our husbands for not getting us together sooner, but
Yep.
typical husbands, right?
Yep.
They, for years, my husband was like, why aren't you friends with Jill? I'm like, why haven't you introduced us? And so when you invited me to that lunch last year, I was like, heck yes, I need to meet Jill. She's a rock star. I've known who you are for a long time. And I'm grateful that we finally came together in so many ways, including with Moxie, and looking forward to all that we're going to be able to do together. And specifically today, being on your podcast. So
yes.
cool.
Well, thank you. I love it. I appreciate what you are. And I'm excited that we got to introduce Moxie Law to my listeners because a lot of people don't know that that's another area that I am part of and passionate about. We've been doing personal injury. I've been doing it for several years. Kara's been doing it now for 13, almost 13. And together we are a force to be reckoned with. So if you're looking for somebody to represent you and protect you in a car accident, personal injury, product liability, anything that has to do with, you being hurt, give us a call. We'll evaluate your case for free and decide and tell you right then if you have a case and whether we can take it on. So, okay, well, let's talk. Let's pivot to Utah drama.
All right,
this is something I've really actually wanted to talk about for quite a bit, but I don't know. I just have stopped because, I have a lot of podcast listeners all over the country. And then I also have podcast listeners around the world.
Right.
So I've always I don't want to be so specific to Utah, but these two things that we're going to talk about, everybody, if you're within the pop culture, like drama world, know about. So we're going to talk a little bit about Jen Shah, Real Housewives of Salt Lake, guys. If you're a fan, you're going to want to listen to this. This will be fun. And then we're also going to talk about the Mormon mom talk drama, which maybe you don't know so much about, but Taylor has become huge and popular on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok, you've probably heard about the mom talk. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So, Jen Shah. So when I heard, and tell me what you thought, when I heard that, I'm not a big Real Housewives of Salt Lake or Real Housewives fan. I actually don't really have a lot of time to watch TV. So I'm very purposeful when I watch TV on the shows I really want to watch. So Real Housewives is, is just something that, could be on the background, but it wouldn't be something that would draw me to watch. So when I heard that they were coming to Salt Lake, I was kind of intrigued a little bit because I was like, I wonder who they're going to have on it. And I wonder if I'm going to know any of these people.
Right.
And I remember when they announced it. Sorry, what?
Oh, I said, I had the same thought. Who's it going to be? And is it somebody that we really know, in Utah as being a celebrity?
Yeah. And there was this huge buildup of anticipation of who was going to be these women on the show. So I don't know about you. Do you remember when they announced? Did you read who they were?
Yeah, I remember reading all the names of people that they had casted as people on the show, and none of the names stood out to me. The only one that kind of stood out to me was Rose. I'm blanking on her first name, but her last name's Rose, right? Mm-hmm. And the only reason why I paid attention to that is because I follow BYU sports, and I assumed that she was related to the BYU basketball coach, Dave Rose, and it does look like that she is in fact married to Dave's brother. So that one kind of
they look very much alike.
Right, they do. The Dave
and her name's Whitney.
Yes, thank you, Whitney. I should have known that, but yeah, Whitney Rose. I kind of thought, oh, she's got to be related to Dave Rose, just because that's the most common Utah, known name on that list that I paid attention to. Interestingly enough, with Jen Shah and her husband, he's a football coach at the University of Utah. as well, but I don't follow Utah football as much as I do other sports. So I wasn't aware of that, but all the other names on the list were surprising to me and not somebody that I have known as like staples within like Utah culture.
That's exactly what I thought. Like my first impression is like, who are these people? Like I could have thought of like 30 different women that would have been really impactful and I thought fun on the show. But I also know that there's a lot of process behind this, like producer after producer saying what's going to make us money. And they clearly have been doing this for so long now that they know. One of the things I noticed is there's connections with almost all of them. I think they really wanted that in the start of a show because they wanted it to be more of this connected group, which, you know, is going to eliminate a lot of people because if you don't have an into this like club kind of thing, then you weren't even going to be considered.
Correct.
I knew who Heather Gray was just because I knew who the beauty lab was. And I knew, and I had known that she had been divorced just because I'm a divorce attorney. And I, you know, had heard a little bit about her, you know, building her beauty lab after her divorce and stuff like that. Disclosure.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say disclosure. I wasn't her divorce attorney or anything. So I'm not disclosing anything or.
Right. I'll be honest. I have watched episodes of Real Housewives of Salt Lake. I told you off the air beforehand that it's one of my husband's guilty pleasures. Sometimes I've come home and caught him watching Real Housewives of Salt Lake. He'll probably kill me for acknowledging that, but it was interesting to me on the few episodes that I have seen that Heather Gay kind of referenced herself as being Mormon royalty or coming from a family of Mormon royalty. And for the life of me, I don't know who that is. Do you happen to know who that is?
Her husband is a gay and they are Mormon royalty and had a lot of money and they like settled. I've read this somewhere and that's where she came from it.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, and within her divorce, like, it was a big deal because, you know, gays don't get divorced kind of thing. But, and then like her wanting to leave the church. And that was the interesting thing is Heather Gay. We didn't know if she was in the church, outside the church. Like she kept saying she was the bad Mormon. And that was kind of her stick. And you didn't know. And then she just came out with a book called Bad Mormon. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. I'm not sure though, actually, but she just came out with a book to talk about like her and the pressures in the church and basically everything that she's already said. But one of the things I was really worried about when the show came out is obviously, you know, I was raised LDS. I understand the culture. I've been raised in Utah. And I was really concerned about the spin, the negativity that they were going to have against the church, you know, and what that was going to come. And of course it, you know, they played on it. They did what they needed to do to get attention. And I felt like the first season was really, they focused a lot on that, which I thought was kind of unfair because they didn't have any woman that was like active, like LDS to kind of like stand up for the principles of the church. What's interesting is Heather Gay ended up being what I felt like more of the, you know, hey, the church isn't all bad. Let's, you know, even though she was like admitting that she doesn't go to church. So,
yeah, I think that at least my perspective of it is their loose association with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is just not a focus of the story. And it's the only thing is that it's what Utah is known for. And so as a result, it does kind of randomly pop up throughout the storyline, but I don't feel like it's like the main point of like these women that belong to this faith who have now, you know, chosen not to follow the tenets of the faith or have chosen to do something different. I just feel like it's not like the main focus of the show. And so I kind of don't give a lot of credence to the occasional pop-up of Mormon culture or Mormon doctrine that they kind of name drop or mention.
Yeah, I felt like the first season was definitely more thinking that they need to focus there. And now I don't even think it's a focus. So I agree with you on that. And it's interesting because like most of them were raised in the church. I think Mary Crosby was the only one that wasn't. And
Right.
like Meredith Marks was, Lisa, who's the one that lived in Chicago and had just moved? She wasn't even a Utah native. It was Meredith or Lisa.
Meredith.
Okay, so and she was the one that I was a little surprised that she made the show, because I was like, you don't even have like Utah roots. Like, you moved here to start your company, and it was doing good, but but anyways.
Well, and Jen Shah, right? Her maiden name is Louis, and Louis is a Polynesian name. There are a lot of Louis in the LDS community who are, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There's always a large Polynesian population within the church, especially in Utah. And so I think, obviously, regardless of whatever Jen's level of activity within the church is now at this point, like that, she probably has some pull or some history with that, just being raised in the Polynesian community within the state of Utah. That's my guess.
Yeah.
But
well, and that goes right into her drama, because well, maybe you can talk more about, like, what is she being? I mean, everybody probably knows, but Jen Shah's in trouble and she's probably going to prison. So let's talk about it.
Right. Well, I think one thing that I kind of, focusing at least on Utah scandals and Utah drama, I think people that aren't from Utah maybe aren't familiar with the fact that because there is such a strong religious community, Utah is really well known for what's called affinity fraud. It's basically like, hey, we have this shared mutual understanding or faith or, community. And as a result, I'm going to convince you to invest in my business, or I'm going to convince you to invest in this thing that I've got going on. And, I previously, before I solely decided to focus on personal injury, I did a fair amount of criminal defense work. And so I had clients who had engaged in what we candidly call affinity fraud, where they manipulate people within their community to invest in their scheme or their endeavor, and to further their end of, getting rich or ripping people off. And so I do think that, unfortunately, that's not an anomaly in Utah. We're very trusting as a community and as a state of our neighbors, that they're telling us truthful things when it comes to their business endeavors. And I think that, unfortunately, it sounds like that's what Jen Shah had engaged in a bit with respect to her marketing fraud scheme that she, is now pled guilty for and being charged with.
So I mean, this is what she did. She allegedly generated and sold lead lists of innocent individuals for other members of their scheme to repeatedly scam. And in actual reality, and as alleged, the so-called business opportunities pushed on the victims by Shah. Smith is her first assistant, who's going to is going to prison, right? He pled guilty as well.
Correct.
And their co-conspirators were just fraudulent schemes motivated by greed to steal victims' money. Now these defendants face time in prison for the alleged crimes. So
let's break that down a little bit, right? Because when she would say on her show, well, I do, data monetization, or I generate lead lists, I think a lot of people were like, well, what the heck does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, she said a lot of words, but it wasn't clear what that meant. And so when I dug into it a little bit more, what she would do in her companies is they would reach out to vulnerable adults over age 55, typically, and they would, quote, sell them business opportunities. And they would say, hey, this is how you can make money at home. This is how we could help you. This is and then they would upsell them for services and say, hey, we're going to build a website for your at-home business, or we're going to do all these other things, which in reality, they weren't doing anything. Then they would take these names of people that they had, quote, sold these business opportunities to and resell these lists to other people who had similar kind of schemes and fraudulent enterprises going on, so that then they could continue to prey on those people and say, oh, hey, we know that you already have this business opportunity going. Let's help you with this coaching session or whatever. And so by doing that, they were really peddling nothing, but taking a lot of money from that. And then they would likewise, when they would sell their lists to each other, they would get money off of the revenue that was generated from those lists. And so it kind of was a pyramid scheme with empty promises and nothing actually being delivered to these individuals that were scammed.
Yeah. And I watched just a few episodes of the first season, and they were clearly in the show. I mean, this was before charges were brought, but she seemed super wealthy. Again, we didn't know what she did, but we knew that her husband's an assistant coach at the University of Utah, and Utah is a right to know state, and University of Utah is a right to know and is a state school. So it's a public university. So you can look up and see exactly what he makes. And I think when I looked it up, it was like $98,000. So you're thinking, what does she do? Because he's not, bringing in the money to make this much. She was the one who was always throwing these lavish parties. She had this huge Park City house. And so you just were like, ooh, wow, she's doing well in her business. And then find out it's all a fraud. We find out later in the season that she doesn't even own her homes, that the home that is shown she was renting for the purposes of Real House of Salt Lake, which I'm sure the show knew that, but they weren't going to tell anybody. I mean, just some stuff you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is nuts.
Well, I just looked it up, and as of 2020, it said Sharif, her husband, was making about $553,000 with the state of Utah. That included bonuses, benefits, retirements, compensation. So that includes all of his total compensation, not necessarily his individual salary. So he's making good money now. I mean, right.
Whittingham, the U of U's coach, is the highest paid Utah State employee. So
correct. But her husband was an practicing attorney for 12 years. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, her husband he did his undergrad, master's degree and law degree all through the University of Utah. He practiced law for 12 years before he got back into coaching. And so it's interesting. I'm curious how much he knew about what his wife's business was or didn't know. Because it does sound like has all been smoke and mirrors, particularly when, if you speed up what she said at her sentencing hearing, which obviously we know now that she was charged with 2 counts. One was for wire fraud and one was, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. And the other one was for, what was the other one? Let me look real quick. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. I apologize. And so, she's now pled guilty to the wire fraud. The other charge was dismissed as part of her plea agreement, but she acknowledged that the product that she was generating had little to no value. And so I think that that's an interesting concession, considering what she had portrayed on TV was that she had this multi-million-dollar empire that was worth so much money because she was so valuable. I think I remember an episode where she said, when you click on any ad on the internet, I make money. When you wonder how they know that you're at Neiman Marcus, I make money, and so she made it sound like she was, I think she even said the Wizard of Oz, like the person behind the smoke and the mirrors, that she was, even when you don't know I'm there, and that's how I make money. Yeah. And clearly her concession in court is not adding up with what she was representing on the show.
And she is facing 30 years in federal prison for this.
Right.
I don't think she'll get that, but she's going to.
The interesting thing about that is, the wire fraud alone, federal wire fraud, does carry up to a 30-year penalty, right? The prosecution, and from my understanding in the research that I did, is that they are recommending 11 to 14 years to the court. And as you and I both know from going to court frequently with our clients, judges aren't bound to accept any representation or recommendation from either of the parties, particularly the prosecution. A lot of times they do accept those recommendations, but a lot of times they say, no, this was so bad, I don't care what the recommendation is, I'm going to sentence you to the max. And so even the prosecution saying 11 to 14 years, that's a lot of time. And I know that they've also recommended restitution in the amount of $9.5 million. And I don't know where she's going to come up with that to do that. but that's not insignificant.
Yeah. And I didn't look up. I mean, there hasn't really been any rumblings about what her husband's going to do. Like, are they going to file for divorce?
Everything I've seen says that they're still tight. But you, as a divorce attorney, I'd be interested to get your perspective as far as like, you know, if your spouse is facing federal charges, well, has pled guilty to federal charges, is looking at significant prison time. What if you were his divorce attorney, which we're not saying that you've been hired, that's not what's happening here. But if Mr. Shah came into your office and said, what advice would you have for me? What would you give?
The divorce would be now about protection. So making sure that his assets and that his income are staved off from garnishment from the federal government. And I've actually done work on federal criminal restitution. And you guys, they will come get your money until you die. Like there's no like forgiveness for the money. Like they will come get it. So even if she gets 6 years and she's out, usually with federal prison, they serve majority of their time. But she will get out and they will work to set up restitution. Anything that's in her and her husband's names will be, but the federal government will work to protect like his half of equity in a home, if they have that and stuff like that, so that he doesn't lose everything out on his equitable distribution. If they stay married, I don't think the federal government will protect him. I don't think that they'll protect monies that they have that are marital. So I don't know if you're looking for a divorce attorney, but I would be, I mean, hopefully he's talking to somebody so he can protect himself from being bankrupt while his wife goes to prison. So.
Right. That's sad. And I mean, even if in theory he still loves her and wants to be with her financially, it sounds like the recommendation would be like, you got to call it off because otherwise you're going down with the sinking ship. Is that kind of your perspective?
Yeah. Yeah. And every money that they're going to have separate monies anyways, and they're not going to be able to buy any assets so long as they're married, because it will be, he'll be, the federal government can come after restitution. So, yeah, a divorce is probably what would protect him the best, or bankruptcy, but
right.
It's hard to file bankruptcy when you make that much money.
Right.
So the last thing I think is funny for my listeners to hear is that last year that Real Housewives of Salt Lake was looking for a new person to join their show because there was a lot of, hubbub about Shah getting kicked off. And then Mary Crosby, there was a ton of drama with her and what was going on with her. So they actually had open auditions, and my assistant at the time applied me for it. And I actually, I had a producer reach out. They're like, hey, write down, we want more information about you. What about this? And then they actually wrote back and wanted an interview. So I actually went through, 3-step process and got an interview with the Real Housewives of Salt Lake. They ended up starting to film in January, and that season has come out, which they actually didn't replace anybody. So they didn't pick anybody from around. I think it was just because they didn't know what was going to happen with Jen Shah. At the time, I don't even think they knew she was going to get bail. It was actually a fight for her to get bail. She had to sign her own personal guarantee on the bond. And so, but she was able to do it. And,
right.
The other thing is Jen Shah's making a ton of money from Real Housewives. I actually think they get paid like this season they got paid $1 million per episode. So she's not hurting for money right now, even though she's going to go to prison. And she's legally making that money. So, but again, it will go into restitution to pay back her.
I was going to say, as part of the initial agreement, I think she had to agree to, in addition to the 9.5 in restitution, she had to forfeit $6 million. And so it'll be interesting. I think my understanding is obviously that she's being sentenced at the end of the month. And so we'll have to just see kind of what that actual jail time looks like that the judge hands down to her, because I don't think he's really thrilled with the "don't you know who I am and I'm so important, you can't send me to prison." That, you know, I've had clients try and argue that at court too, and it never goes well. So I think you've just got to go in there with some major humble pie and say, yeah, I totally get it, I need to make it right, and we'll see what the judge does on that.
Yep. So and when we say end of the month, end of November, because we don't know when this podcast is coming out. But anyways, that's just the legal drama with Jen Shah. Super interesting. Let's just talk really quickly about the Momtok drama. So I'm on TikTok. I watch TikTok a little bit, but you know, it's not something I'm addicted to like some people, but I kept seeing these you know, videos of Taylor, Frankie Paul, and other women, and they would hashtag Momtok. I just kept seeing it, and I'm pretty sure it's because, you know, obviously I'm located in Utah, and then I would, you know, stop and look at them for 2 seconds and then scroll past. They were always doing some weird, you know, dances. You know, those are usually not the TikToks I like to watch. I watch a lot of news on TikTok. I actually really like getting my daily dose of news. Anyway, so I knew what Momtok was. But then when the drama came down this summer of what Momtok was, it was just like, it's like this bomb went off, and I was like, I went down a rabbit hole and I like read all about it, because I was like, what is going on?
That's crazy.
And I was like, this is Utah. But I'm not actually surprised. So just real quick, Momtok was just a bunch of girls that lived in Utah that would get together and they would do dances or TikToks. And Frankie Paul just kind of got popular on TikTok. I mean, they started posting, you know, right at the beginning, which was where, if you're big on TikTok, it's most likely because you started between February and June of 2020, like right when COVID hit, because that's when it just like blew up. And that's just what happened. So she just got tons of followers, and then they just kept doing these trendy dances, and it just became a thing. And they called it Momtok. Well, then all of a sudden, Taylor posts a video like, my life is blowing up, falling apart. And she did like, I don't even remember what it was, but all of a sudden, like every comment was like, you cheated on your husband, or your husband cheated on you. Like, it was all just these accusations of just like, blah, blah, you're this horrible person. And, you know, when stuff like that happens, and you all, you know, she clearly has some like body dysphoria, and like, you know, she is always looking for people to like, for attention. And she, you know, she never feels like she's good enough, kind of thing. She decides just to post this video explaining that her and all of her friend groups are swingers, and that they have these parties, and they're supposed to be all LDS, which LDS people don't drink, supposedly. Whatever, we don't judge. It is what it is. But, you know, they do teach that we don't drink alcohol, and that they would do these parties, they would drink, and then they would do soft swinging. And we were like, what the?
I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, that's what's so silly about it. So I guess they had a contract that they all had to sign that said that they could go to like sea base, but they couldn't go all the way. Like, you couldn't sleep with the other person, but you could give them a hand job, or you can like, you know, give them some oral sex. Like, it was stupid. And they had these rules because like you couldn't leave the room and like be by yourself. And, you know, it was so like, first of all, what who does this? Like, this is so weird. Like, and just so you know, these Momtok girls, like, they're gorgeous, and most of their husbands are very good looking. They're all in real estate. They all make tons of money, because in the last 3 years they were making so much money. So, you know, you're like looking at them like, you guys got, you know, you look like you're fine, but why are you doing this?
Well, I have a hard time just managing my own schedule and my kids' schedule. Like, I can't imagine like penciling in time to write up a contract for this like agreement, like for
Oh, I know.
everybody to be on the same page about this. But
Well,
yeah,
and all of the
kind of.
mom talks, like half of them are pregnant. Like they, anyways. So she does this post and she just outs everybody and was like, I broke the contract and I fell in love with somebody else or whatever.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's not surprising because just so you know, for some reason in Utah, there's a huge swinging community, and I have divorced a lot of you. I'm just going to say it. And so every single time I think, swinging sounds like such a good idea in the moment because you think, oh, it's going to add something fresh to our marriage, but yet we don't want to end our marriage. And, both of us are agreeing to it. So it's going to be great. Well, I can just tell you right now, usually both parties are really technically not agreeing to it. One party feels pressured into doing it because they think that is the only way to save their marriage. And usually at the end, what happens, and I see this a lot, like swinging, usually, you're going to the big parties and you're like going to different people. But what happens is we do couple swaps where they're just couples, just like this mom talk stuff, and they're swapping. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm falling in love with this other person who ends up being like their best friend. And like,
Best friend's spouse. Yeah.
oh my gosh, I've done so many divorces of that. And then the other spouse is sitting there like, I didn't really want to do it. I didn't know what else to do. And, now you know, now he's choosing her or she's choosing him, and it just never works.
Well, and then I think the false hope is like, okay, well, if I divorce my spouse and then get together with this other person who I had this physical relationship with, it's all going to work out. But because the relationship is based solely on their physical relationship and not genuine relationship building skills of love and trust and understanding and shared experiences, then the likelihood that those are going to turn out to be successful, I think, are obviously very small, if at all. And so it really is kind of just, I think, asking for a road to heartbreak and disappointment and frustration. And I think even if you look at Taylor Frankie Paul's most recent, TikToks, she's saying, no, I'm never going to do that again. It didn't work out. It's not good for me. Obviously she says, she's not going to condemn other people that choose to participate but that she's realized that for her, that's not a good idea. And I think obviously you're a testament, like people you've represented supports why that's probably not the best idea.
I know. And I get so many people that fight me against this. Oh, open marriages save my marriage. Monogamy is not made for men. And I'm like, that's bullshit. That's just what a man wants to say, to have more sex with more women. Women usually don't need to go out and have sex with multiple different partners to feel satisfied. Like, marriage is a commitment to the other person. Now, what you do in your marriage, fine. I like no judgment here. You do what you want. You just, when you come into my office and hire me to do your divorce, I won't say I told you so, but I'm going to tell you on my podcast, I told you so. Like, so when this all blew up, it was just like, I was just like, what? Like, what is this? Like, this is crazy. And of course it's going to blow up all of these families. And, the biggest thing is so many people came out and denied it and said she's full of crap, that this was just her and this other guy. Like, basically they were just having an affair.
Right.
Which I don't believe. There's probably, it's halfway between the truths of both.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I just have a hard time when I look at all of this. I get people, I make money from putting information about themselves out on the internet, right? And that's clearly what she's choosing to do. But my heart always thinks about like the kids, right? Like she and her husband have 2 children together who are quite young. And this now being on the internet is never going to go away. And at some point, her children are going to learn about, the demise of her and her husband's marriage and kind of how that came about. And I'm curious to see, like, and we may never see, but how do you talk to your child about, hey, these are choices that I made and, it wasn't a good experience? Or what about when their friends find out? And how do you handle that? Teasing, bullying. I think there's certain things that I understand are sexy, attractive, make money, particularly on TikTok or the internet, but it's never going away. And I think that there's some repercussions from that, but that people, at least right now, where it's trendy and popular to put this information out there, aren't thinking about 10, 20, 30 years down the road, how this is going to affect their lives or their children's lives.
Exactly. And like her kids are in a lot of the TikToks, like they're right there in the drama. She posted a post in like June that said, in my 20s, getting divorced, starting therapy, living on my own for the first time ever alone, along with 2 little kids. And at first I was like, that's good. Like, you need to go find yourself, figure out your shit. And you need to like, be able to stand on your own feet because you're clearly not happy. Like something's wrong. And you need to be able to figure that out on your own. I'm not even joking. It was like 3 weeks later, like she must be going through the divorce and it has another boyfriend, and it's not the guy that she rumoredly cheated on. And now, so it's only been like 5 months since this drama. She's now like got like a full-on boyfriend. He's on a lot of her TikToks, and we find out that she's freaking doing a reality TV show with this boyfriend.
Well, I think one of the things that is most concerning that she's put out there is just that she struggles obviously with her body image and who she is. And she has been under 100 pounds recently. And I think obviously all the stress and all the things going on around her are affecting her ability to stay healthy. And I feel like if you want to make a reality show or you want to do all those things, that's great. But you've got to be able to take care of yourself physically first. And she's got to be at a healthy weight. She's got to be able to take care of herself because she has 2 children that need her to take care of them too. And so for me, I would hope that she would focus on getting that kind of help first and make sure that she's in a really healthy place physically, mentally, before engaging in more of this, additional stuff that can only add to the stress and drama of everyday life.
I get it. I mean, I'm on social media and most of my listeners and people are super kind to me and what I'm doing, and they enjoy my products and they're not mean. But for the most part, social media people are so mean. Like, not the people doing the content, like people watching it. And right. I mean, she is just, for somebody that's already mentally fragile and struggles with those kind of insecurities, I know that it sounds great because you can make a lot of money if you have followers on TikTok or YouTube, right. But oh my goodness, to have to be able to deal with the mental, and she was murdered online. Just like you said, those posts are there forever. They will be on the internet. They will be there for all of her kids, all of her grandkids to see, this is my mom. And that's tough. And I feel sad for some of these influencers that, I think a lot of becoming big online is luck, timing, what's your content, and a lot of them are people that are just looking for ways to express themselves online. But some of them are not super like mentally strong, and the comments get to them. It hurts them. My heart just breaks because I watch some of these. I love some of these influencers like Elise Myers, who is such a great, example of strength and fragility and just being a human being. But, she talks openly about the comments and the things that just cause her to be so sad. And anyways, my whole point to that is just like, you got to be careful, Taylor. Like, you're not like 15 minutes of fame is not going to be what you need to be able to know who you are, to be a whole person and to find happiness. So I hope she can do that.
Yeah. And I haven't heard a lot about, as far as the reality show, like, is it going to just be on TikTok? Is it going to be on some other platform? Is she producing it? Is there somebody behind it that's actually producing it? I haven't been able to find anything about that. Have you heard anything?
I just have seen, I follow these people that all they do is talk about the drama of Momtok. So they give me like the summary. So there was it just came out like this last week, that she posted something at a restaurant, and then in the video you could see the camera person going by. So this person was like, see, she's she's like doing and then it came out from there that she really is taping a reality TV show. So I mean, yay, she's making money, she's supporting herself, which is great. But gosh, this whole social media world, it's just like, you got to be careful.
It's true. I also think, of you and I are the same age, and we were raised with, Bambi, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And I feel like there's a whole new generation that wasn't raised that way or hasn't been taught that mantra. And so the internet, like you said, can be a really toxic and vile place, with a lot of people thinking that it's their duty to share whatever hateful comment they have for that person. And if you are not mentally strong and tough and physically in a good, healthy place, I think it could be really dangerous. And so I would just encourage anybody who, is struggling with, eating disorders or body image issues, to make sure that you take care of yourself with therapy, take care of yourself with good people around you, make sure that you're not inviting that toxicity into your life, or that you've got an outlet or, somebody that can help boost you up when you're going through that kind of stuff, that you can overcome it and not succumb to some of the more dangerous comments that can be said.
Absolutely. And get off social media, because it's all fake. Right. It's not real. It's like, it's not going to help you. And, they make it seem like their life's great. Like Taylor, like trying to make you think that she's doing so good, that she's sad inside and she's struggling. So, take care of yourself.
Right.
This was really fun, Mom. Oh my goodness. Utah drama. See, it's interesting. And we could go, there's several other stories we could have talked, but, talking about these two, we could have made a whole episode on each one of those, but,
right.
But anyways, this was fun. Thank you, Kara, for joining me to talk about the drama of Utah, and just to give us a little bit of more of a lighthearted podcast to bring to our listeners.
Yes, thanks for inviting me. And Jill, you're always a pleasure to work with. I love working with you. You're amazing. For Jill's listeners, guys, she practices what she preaches, as far as like female empowerment, lifting people up. And it's such a pleasure to be on her team and participate in the podcast. So thanks for listening.
You're awesome. Well, that was another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. If you have something that you want to hear talk about, please, you can DM me on my Instagram, Jill Coyle, and we'd love to hear from you. Till next week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, follow, and share. I'd love to hear your questions and feedback. You can contact me at community@jillcoyle.com. See you next time. I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. Any advice given on the podcast is general and shall not be construed as legal advice.